Happy Friday, everyone. So not our usual day that we do our coffee, but next week will also be on Friday as well. Girls are feeling a lot better back at school. I know I had a lot of well wishes from you guys, so thank you. We actually just all ran to the post office together to apply for passports because the Northeys are coming to England in November. So I will be in England and going to work with a funeral home for a few days to see how it's done over there, learn more about the process. We'll be doing a little sightseeing and maybe try and do a meet and greet. These meet and greets, so I don't know why. I'm excited to meet people, but they stress me out because it's hard to kind of coordinate. And I hear a lot of you say you want to do meet and greets, but then it's hard to actually coordinate schedules and such. So really excited. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Daniel, Queen of Rocker, Susie. That's a fun name. Dave and Heather and Pete and Melissa and Ryan. And hey, everybody. So yeah, we're going to be coming to England. I'm really excited. So passports are in the works. October 8th, which is a Tuesday. I think I have the date right. It's that second Tuesday in October will be the meet and greet in Cincinnati. From 4 to 6. So if you would like to know the location to meet up, have a drink or whatever, or just chat for a little bit, send me an email, Kari@KariNorthey.com. So yeah, Wheeling, Illinois. Next time I'm in Illinois, I will hit you up, Susie. So I had a couple questions from Dennis. You might remember Dennis. We had talked about him back when he lost his partner, Peter, this last year. And he is always sending me great questions. He said, what do you think about while you work? Do you think about your day, your schedule, what you're, have to do later, politics, news in your life? What do you think about? I think every day is a little different. Sometimes I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to be doing? I think he's mostly meaning maybe when I'm like in the prep room or something. Usually I might be singing along to the music if there's music. I might be thinking about what I'm doing for dinner later. I'm always thinking ahead. It's always what do I need to be doing later that day? What do I need to be doing next maybe? I'm in the moment, but yet I'm also planning. I'm always planning. I've got to be thinking in 12 different places because of the 12 different roles I feel like I have to play. So I don't ever think about any one specific thing, but if I'm listening to music, I may be thinking about the music or just, sometimes you go down that rabbit hole, like one song maybe makes you think about one thing and that makes you think about something else. Sometimes if I'm working with families, they trigger memories of other families. If I'm working with a family, like in an arrangement, I'm thinking of the, 10 things I need to do as soon as I complete one thing. And so I maybe just creating lists in my brain. I think there's Post-it notes all over my head inside. Do people ever sing in the funeral parlor? Like the workers or like at funerals, people will have songs. So oh, New England Shore. I do love the New England Shore. We went to Maine last year and my daughter this morning said, Mom, I want to go back to Maine like 100 times. We had so much fun there because we were not drinking. She was having waffles this morning and was using her New Hampshire syrup. And so we got talking about Maine again. She was not drinking it like freebasing syrup or anything. Sorry, that tickled me. Yes, you can sing Ave Maria for your mom. I have not watched the Casketeers yet. It's kind of like anything where when you leave work, you like to leave work. You don't want to watch work. And so watching something about what I do for a living, it feels like work. It's not as enjoyable as it could be. So I need to make it a priority to watch that because I have heard only good things about the Casketeers. And so I really do want to watch. I just haven't sat and done it yet. So what did you think? Their views on death are beautiful. Have you ever heard of cemeteries allowing families to dig the grave space. Yeah, you know, some cemeteries would allow you to be there and to help, but they need to monitor. It is such a small margin. I mean, there's graves you look down and there's only this much room between one vault to the next. So there's margin and not much margin for error. So when you're digging, you got to make sure you're not hitting other graves and other vaults and, you know, watching out for the headstones and such. So typically someone would kind of come oversee if you're digging, if you've never done that before. You're not a fan of the Casketeers, Robert. Please do share why. Dennis also wanted to know, can you tell anything about the character of people you were working on just by being with them? Not always. It's funny though, because we often get maybe precursors if we know that they're not a good person, like if they died in jail or something, then we know these things about them, or we know maybe some of the family that they came from and know some things about the family that are not good. So typically though, we are all the same. Death is such an equalizer. We're all the same laying on the table there. I was actually thinking about it this morning and I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter what you do and how much money you spend on your appearance when you're alive. We are all dead on that table in the end, and all could poop on ourselves just the same, or could purge just the same, and are all going to decompose just the same, no matter if we're rich or poor or black or white or anything. We are all equalized with death in terms of our physical bodies here on earth. Have support mechanisms in place for all staff members, especially when you find yourselves dealing with tragic funerals. You know, that's such a great question, because just like if there's a tragedy like a school shooting, let's say, and you bring in all the counselors and the grief support, funeral homes, I don't think, care for ourselves like we should when it comes to that, because we feel like it's our job and we should just take care of things. When there's times, especially if, you know, we have to care for all the victims of all those shootings at a funeral home, we have to go through this huge emotional journey as well after, because we are seeing the results. We are talking to all those families. We are burying and cremating and caring for all those dead. And we're also taking care of the shooters or the people who inflicted all this pain. So there's a lot heavy burden on funeral directors in those situations. And I think they're often forgotten. And so just as one prime example of a situation where we would need that aftercare for ourselves and that therapy for ourselves and that support for ourselves. And I don't think we seek it out enough. That's why we get a lot of burden put on ourselves, but it's self-inflicted burden, because we could reach out and we could have somebody come in and we could do those things for ourselves and for our staff, but we don't often enough do that. So I think that's a great question. We moved my mom and brother this summer and have a headstone ordered. The monument company thinks we can install the headstone ourselves, but that makes me nervous. Is it difficult to install? I'm guessing if you're doing it yourselves, it's like a flat one, or like a little pillow marker, they're called. They're about the size of a pillow, because headstones are heavy, no matter what size. I mean, they're solid granite, and so they're heavy. So if you can do it yourself, it can't be too big, but there's not really an upright headstone. I don't know how they think you're going to do it them yourselves. They use lifts and all sorts of things when they put those in. Uprights are up and they're attached to a base. So all you're doing is setting the stone. You're not really installing it. It's kind of an odd word for it, but there should be a base for it, a foundation at the cemetery, and all you're doing is setting it on the base, essentially. How do you get different irons after you get cremated? I don't know what that means, irons. Okay, Robert, I'll have to check it out. Yeah, Heather, there's no way you can lift an upright headstone without like a lift. You yourselves physically, like 3 of you can't lift it even. They're too big. Ever consider doing a video about the cemeteries and funerals on Mackinac Island? Every time I visit, I'm fascinated on the tours when they mention the rules about those laid to rest. So let me tell you, I've joked about this before, Pete. When we go places, I often, like when we went to the Bahamas on a vacation, I'm at the bar at like 1 a.m. talking to somebody about burial customs on the island. And my husband's just like, Kari, seriously, just stop. But I take the opportunity. And if I've had a beer, then I'm more likely to socialize, ask those questions. So we went to Mackinac Island this is years ago, maybe 9 years ago. It was my first time ever, only time staying on the island. And the whole time I was there, my goal was to find out, how do you get bodies off the island? So if somebody dies on the island, how do you get them to a funeral home? Like, does a special boat come? Do you just put them on the regular old ferry? Like, what happens? Nobody could give me an answer. People were guessing that, oh, they take them on the garbage barge. I was like, are you kidding me? I think in the end, the closest answer somebody said was they do believe that they will have, the funeral home will come over with a cot. They will place them on the cot, all covered, and bring them back on the ferry and meet a vehicle over. They said they don't think they make a special trip, and I've never investigated after by maybe calling a funeral home up there, but I should do that. But my husband, God bless him, yeah, he makes fun of me because that's what I do. I want to know. And then going back over, then you put them in the casket and have to go back over there for the funeral. So cool, because then you're doing everything by wagon and horses. So Mackinac Island, if you're not familiar, is an island in Michigan, and there is no motorized vehicles allowed. So there's beer truck wagons when they deliver beer to the island. And there are people that live on the island, very few, but there's people that live there year round, but it's mostly a tourist island. And I think it's 7 or 8 miles around the perimeter if you were to bike it. And there's hotels and there's restaurants and things. And there's a huge history on the island. There was a fort there. And so you can see, tour the fort and everything. So it's a pretty cool place. But yes, great question about Mackinac Island. I should do a video up there. Do you let people observe you embalm? So only if somebody is like an apprentice or a licensed. If somebody was really serious and I knew their intent and had seen their progress to wanting to go to school, then maybe I would ask somebody if they were able to come watch me, or if they were employed with a funeral home. But it's all up to the owner of the funeral home. It's not my liability that's on the stake. So the boxes that you put the ashes in. Okay. Lucky Parker. I'm sorry. Is it lucky? How do you get different irons? So urns. How do you get different urns after you get cremated? You select them. They sell them. You can buy them online. You can buy them from funeral homes. You pick which one and they will put you in it. Would you say your school really influences how good of a funeral director you become? I really don't enjoy the program I'm in, and I don't want it to affect my career. Honestly, no. In terms of what you know, there are so many things that you never will learn in school. It's such a fraction. School is there to help you pass tests and get your boards. I think just like almost any profession, you're going through school to get a foundation, to get a little exposure, and to get a bunch of knowledge to pass a test. It is the hands-on in your apprenticeship and who you work for that I think makes and puts you at a certain level. There's so much about being a funeral director, though, that you can't teach. You can't teach someone how to have compassion. You can't teach someone how to be detailed. You can't teach someone all the way how to talk with kindness and patience, and all those things have to just be in you or they're not in you. You can only teach so much of that part of it. But the embalming and those things, you're going to learn on site because you do so little of it in school, actually. So you're coming out with the basics. You're not coming out a well-trained embalmer by any means. And that's the problem, is I think a lot of kids coming out of school, I say kids, even though some are 40, 50, think that they know everything because they've gone through school. You have a little bit of a tool to begin your journey as an embalmer and as a funeral director when you come out of school. You're just getting started. You got one foot up in the air onto the first step. You haven't even taken the first big step yet. So school is not the end all be all of what makes you a good funeral director or not. How's a body prepared for air transport to another country? Are the bodies embalmed? How do you ensure there's no leakage? So we actually just had someone was going to go to India. Every country has their own rules and regulations about how a body has to enter that country. They do not all require that a body is embalmed, because some cultures and religions do not allow embalming. So if we were to send somebody back to a country for cremation over there, they may not have to be embalmed, but they do regulate what kind of container they are shipped in and how it is sealed, and if it's lined with a certain metal or material. And so our first call is essentially to consulates to find out. We have to get paperwork, we have to get contagious disease health records and all this stuff. And so there's a lot of steps to go through before we can sometimes ship. And it may take 2 to 3 weeks to be able to get somebody back to a different country, or to even bring them in from another country. So their condition is not always going to be great by the time they get to here or by the time they get back there. So it does require a long lag time often. Thank you guys for all the kindness, all the support. I love the words of, like, you have no idea. Like, it's so awesome that you guys support me like you do. After a body is picked up, what is the timeline for embalming? Is the body embalmed immediately after pickup? I hate the term pickup. It just sounds like I went and grabbed a box on the side of the road. Or if it's a late night pickup, can the embalming wait until the next day? So it all depends on when we get authorization. If the funeral director embalmer is the one going to the house and the family's there and they get authorization right then, they may go right back to the funeral home and do the preparation work. But if a removal service is sent to a hospital and they're brought back to the funeral home in the middle of the night, they then are placed in the cooler. And then the next morning, a funeral director may then call the family, but the family may still not know if they want embalming or cremation. So then they wait until they actually meet with the funeral director, which may be later that day or the next morning. So sometimes it's 24 to 48 hours later before embalming is even decided upon. So there's a huge range there in what may happen. Some funeral homes don't embalm at night, some do. It all depends on the size of the funeral home, the workflow, just kind of how they operate. So there are times that I will have gone right from the house back to the funeral home to embalm, run home for a shower, and back to the funeral home to start my day and meet with the family. But there's also times that it's been 2 days because families couldn't figure out what they wanted to do for a while. Drew, Amazon sells everything. Are you talking about urns? Yes, Amazon does sell everything. It's quite crazy, actually. Drew, check your email also. I sent you some stuff. I don't have thank you for answering the question. My dad's body was flown in from Netherlands to Kenya some 20 years ago, and this answered the questions I have had for years. Is it Salome or Salome? Some names, guys, I've never seen, and I think they're beautiful. I just don't know how to pronounce them. Kim asked, could a family member be in the room while you embalm? So it depends on the funeral home and what they will allow, but you will have to sign paperwork for sure if you wanted to do that. If you came to me and said, I have no connection to the funeral business, I have never seen an embalming, I have no idea what happens in there, I want to be with my dad while you embalm him. It's To me, it's not that cut and dry. We would be having a conversation as to why you wanted to be in there. Like, what are you hoping to gain from this time with your dad? What are you hoping to see, or what are you anticipating seeing? Sometimes somebody just wants to be with you maybe while you wash the body, and then they're good. But I don't, just like aspiration, a lot of people don't know that that's even part of the process of embalming. So if you came into the preparation room and wanted to watch your dad being embalmed, and I took out the trocar and inserted it into his abdomen, I'm going to lose you on the floor probably. So there's a lot of mental that goes along with what you're seeing. And I would want to know, why are you wanting to see those things? What is your hope? What are you trying to gain from that moment? So I don't think it's quite so cut and dry, but there's going to be a lot of paperwork for things that you could come back and possibly sue a funeral home for, like mental anguish and all these things. So it's not that they don't want you to be in there or to see things, but why are you wanting to do that is the question. For one entering in a death care position with no experience, what to expect? Oh, that's way too much. Big of a question. I'm sorry for 30-minute live. Salome. Yes. Okay. I felt I've been called into this field. I've had many chances of entering the field. I hesitate to make the move, but continue to have the calling. Any advice? Well, I think you need to actually experience the field. Maybe just go job shadow for a day if you are interested in this business, because most people have only been in the funeral home witnessing a funeral. And that's about this much of what we do as a funeral director. So you need to maybe go and shadow to actually see what is going on at a funeral home. There are so many different positions within a funeral home that you can do to be part of the experience and to help families and to walk along with families. So it's not just as a licensed funeral director and embalmer, but you can do pre-need, you can do aftercare, you can do graphics, you can do, you can work the parking lot, the visitations, the funerals, you can do the preparation, you can do hair and makeup. There's all these different areas. Hey, Brandon, finally. Awesome. That is so cool. Is Victor still alive or in touch? So Victor is still alive, and I have not talked to him in just a little bit. I've seen he's posted a little bit, but he's kind of fallen to the wayside. I'm not sure 100% if Victor was a reality. I hate to say that, but he's been alive 2 years after a terminal brain cancer, which is not often. I hate to even say that, but I'm saying it live, I guess, now. So I'm not sure. Victor, there's a lot of unanswered questions about that situation now down the road. And so not quite sure about Victor, but he is still alive. Cup of Joe. Hey, bud, Mike. I love it. Yeah, so we go for about 30 minutes. I try and do live. Yeah, so I hate to say that about Victor, guys, but yeah, it's true. That's what we have to say. So I'm not going to say much else. You guys get it. Dennis also asked me how is my mom? So you got an introduction to my mom in one video. I think I might do some more videos with my mom. She had such a vast experience and knowledge base within this business from working at the funeral home for so long and working so closely with the families, and then working with the SIDS organization and the Fetal Death Board, and just doing so much within that side of it. So I will probably tap into another video with my mom, and it's kind of fun just because we are so similar in so many ways, our personalities, our look, everything. So it's kind of fun to, tap into her. Callie, Valerie Harper survived terminal brain cancer for many years beyond what was expected, which is amazing. And I'm not saying that's the reasoning, but there's a whole, it's a whole lot more to it, Callie. So I hope that, Victor is beating the odds, and if he in fact does have brain cancer, that he is doing well, and he is making the most of his time and beating it. Yeah, that's what I got to say about that. I know there was one more quick question in here. Does faith play a part in what you do? And I talked a little about faith with my student group yesterday, because there are days when we face things that I don't want anybody to have to face. It's not fair. I say, it's not fair that we have to see certain things, and it's not fair that we have to take on certain things. But what is fair is that families get the help they need, and that they get the guidance and the person kind of connected with them at the time that they need them. Because there's things that are just not real. They don't seem real when you see them, when you see bodies in certain conditions and things done to children and to people. And yesterday was kind of one of those days. Just sometimes life is not fair of what we have to see in this business. But can you be buried on your own property? Great question, Corey. So everybody's state and counties regulate whether you can be buried on your own property or not. I mean, there's places you can't even bury your animals on your own property, let alone a body. But in our area, you would have to get a special permit. So you have to go before boards, and you have to get a special permit to bury somebody on your property. And then it goes on your deed and titles to your land. So that way, if it passes down and the land is sold, then it's always on the land title that there is a body buried there. So anybody is aware of it down the road, because 100 years down the road, they're remodeling and they're digging up and they find bones. They need to connect back to who is there, which is what happens along the way. Oh, Victor. Somebody asked who Victor was. Go back and watch. So a gentleman in California contacted me that he had terminal cancer, and he wanted to do an interview with me, and he was going to do Death with Dignity. And he wanted to do it while I was there, and then I would embalm him after. He was terminal cancer and was going to be ending his life. This was it April of last year? So it's been a year and a half, I think is when it was. I don't think it's been 2.5 years ago. No, it's just been a year and a half ago. And so when I was there, he said he decided he was not going to do it, which, please do not kill yourself because I'm in town. That was a lot of pressure on me anyway. So I tried to many times connect with him to do videos, to do phone interviews, to do all sorts of things. There was always a reason he could not. So we never connected aside from emails. So fast forward all this time later, over time I've emailed, and I finally just tapered away from conversation with him because things did not add up. And you can call it phishing or, hoax, whatever you want, but that became what it seemed to be. So at this point, I don't know. I don't know if Victor is real. If he is real, unfortunately, I don't know. So I kind of have put that on the side and wish him well. And there it is. Yeah. So the new homeowner cannot move a body. No, it's it's then a disinterment, reinterment. You have to get a special permit to bring the body above ground and then reburied somewhere else. So it can be done. You just need to go through the proper channels. You cannot just go back in the backyard and dig somebody up and then move them somewhere else. So you just have to go through the proper procedures. Kari, I recently lost my sister who had been abusing drugs for nearly 20 years, and they couldn't embalm her. What's your policy on this matter? So why could they not embalm her is my question. And what do you mean policy? What happened to upright headstones? Now most are flat and hard to find. That's a great question, Drew. Well, a lot of cemeteries, not a lot, but some cemeteries are going to flat sections only because of maintenance, honestly. It's easier to mow a cemetery when everything is flat. It takes a lot more labor hours, which somebody has to pay for. Typically a township or a county has to pay for when they are upright headstones, because you have to weed whip around the whole thing and can't, it just takes a lot extra time. Whereas you can just go mow fast if everything's flat. In a memorial park is what they're called when everything is flat typically. So have you dealt with Troy Gannon in Texas who does custom caskets? I have not, but that's the YouTube video that's out there where he builds those custom caskets, I think is who you're referring to. I have not dealt with him though, but depending where he is in Texas, might have to add him to my list when I go to Texas of a bunch of places to go to. Yeah, Dee, I am not sure of that situation, why they wouldn't embalm her. I think it was due to unnecessary risk, but she hadn't tested positive for any diseases. I have no idea what was going on there. Unfortunately, I would need a lot more information about it. Salome asked, why do cars with caskets drive slowly? So a hearse, if a hearse is in procession, we drive slower down the road just to allow cars. You want everybody in the procession to travel a little more closely together. And so for that safety, you want to travel slower, but also just more of a solemn moment that you're traveling slower. Look at New Orleans when they do kind of that death march to the cemetery. It's slower, it's quieter, it's solemn. And then after it's a dance back home. But you just travel slower when you do that. Man, the Crown Hill Cemetery video, guys, this one is going to take me a while to edit. And so I need to have a good 4 or 5 days. Like there's so much history to Crown Hill Cemetery, which is amazing. I just need to go through all my footage. So I'm going to I've got to kind of hash out how I'm going to lay out these videos, because in a few weeks, hopefully when I'm in Cincinnati, I'll be at Spring Grove Cemetery. Crown Hill and Spring Grove are on the top 10 largest cemeteries in the world. If that tells you anything, that's big. So Crown Hill Cemetery was amazing. And I took a bazillion pictures and videos. And so I have to decide how much I'm going to show within these videos, because I don't want them to be too long, but I want them to be slightly educational and historical and share some with you. Especially like John Dillinger is buried there. And I know that's been going around the news lately, the John Dillinger thing. So great question. Yeah, I need some time to just sit and work on it and figure out how I'm going to lay it out. So I feel like knowing your line of work, I am safe to ask you my weird questions. You can ask anything, Emma, honest to goodness. I'm shocked at what people asked, because I can't believe there's so many questions, not by what the question is. I will answer pretty much anything. Yeah, the law enforcement memorial is beautiful at Crown Hill. It's so cool. Have died. If a body comes to you and dies of a drug overdose, would you be cautious of embalming them if they were tested positive for disease? So I think I've said this before. We treat every body as if they might be contagious. All the same PPE. If we know for sure that somebody is positive for certain diseases, of course, we're going to use even more precaution. With someone who is a drug overdose, there is an added contamination or exposure element for the funeral director, because some of these drugs, just touching, if they have any residue on them, can lead us to have an overdose, just like law enforcement and everyone. So there is heightened precaution with overdoses because of that. If she was maybe dead for an extreme period of time before they found her, it might be because of decomposition that they didn't embalm. So I'm not quite sure what their cause was. If you ever had to refer a body for autopsy because of something you discovered while embalming, I have not. There have been a few times where I did find a gentleman from a nursing home, and I found a pill down in his sock. So I don't know if he had, like, instead of taking his medication, he stuck it in his sock. But I told the funeral home owner so that they could alert the nursing home in case there was anything going on there. But I have not found anything extremely suspicious when I've been embalming on somebody. So last question, and then we'll sign off for this week. Where does the blood go when you embalm? Down the drain. Go watch my video on water plants and how clean the water comes out after your embalming fluid and blood all go through the water plant. It doesn't, I'm not saying they're not embalmed, but if a body is so badly decomposed, they may not be able to be embalmed because there's no vasculature system to put the fluid in. It's all dissolved inside the body. So you could do a topical embalming and embalm the tissue from the outside and hopefully get some preservation in order to do a viewing. So the veins have all turned to mush, essentially, and the arteries inside the body once you get to a certain phase of decomposition. So thank you, guys. Send me more questions to answer next week. Next Friday morning, probably around 9:30 my time, Eastern Standard Time, I will be coming back at you for Coffee with Kari. So talk to you guys later. Bye.